Let's play some hockey tonight. Energetic, passionate, and savvy. Gouche Live. Brought to you by the good people at the Hockey News and Sports Illustrated. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Gouche.
Welcome to another episode of Gouche Live. We have an incredible show tonight. We have one of the best joining us from Vancouver. You'll hear that interview. I had a chance to, not sit down. I was actually standing up, but had a chance to talk to Matt Sekeres from Sekeres and Price. You are going to love this interview. He's going to fill you in on all the details of the Vancouver Canucks, of course, changing up. Hey, it's the week of hockey, so we got a lot of hockey news. Sports Illustrated and the good people at Fired Up Network, where we'll be doing the pre-game shows for all Leafs coming going forward. Really excited that Terry Rivard has organized that. So I'm pumped up, and I know my producer, who's coming up in here in a second, is also going to be pumped up. But we weren't doing pre-game shows for the Rangers every day. We did get to do the Winnipeg Jets, don't forget. And of course, you saw what happened. Yeah, you know. That was a feisty little game. We'll talk to Jordan about that. Hey, Fired Up Network, don't forget, we're also on Roku TV and anywhere you can get podcasts. Go to your Apple podcast, get us, click on it. TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, and you're with us. And so is my producer, Jordan Larache.
Hey, Gooch.
Jordan, how are you?
I'm good. Just
I'm so pumped. Oh, sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
I'm so pumped to present we had an opportunity, you were there, you heard him, to talk to Matt, to really get a firsthand knowledge of what's going on in Vancouver, which is really cool. And now you and I are going to talk about what the heck is going on in Philadelphia. And that's just after what's going on in Montreal. It's like musical chairs.
It's been a crazy, 24 hours. I mean, the writing was on the wall, though. I mean, the Flyers are really struggling, and they're a pretty bad losing streak right now. So, I mean, it was only a matter of time before something happened, and they got rid of Alain Vigneault.
Hey, Jordan.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Well, I mean, we're talking about what's his face in Winnipeg. Help me out, Paul Maurice for a little bit, but I mean, after this recent stretch, I mean, they're looking pretty good now.
Well, let's not end. I'll tell you what, it's 1,000 games for our good friend Blake Wheeler, who, I've been hard on. I'll be the first to say it, but I'll tell you what, he had a breakaway to score his first goal. What a great night that would have been for his 1,000th game. But he added a couple assists, and he had 3 assists the night before or the day before. And he is actually looking very sharp, as is Scheifele. So, every week from week to week, it can change. So let's hope that my Winnipeg Jets continue on doing it. Hey, and your New York Rangers look sharp.
Yeah, I mean, even with Shesterkin out of the lineup, Georgiev played well the other night against, I believe it was San Jose. And, this team is looking like they can't lose. I mean, they're dominating teams. The whole lineup is playing really well. We're getting contributions from Cabo Caco, is on a 6-7 game point streak now. I mean, all's looking really good in New York.
Hey, you know what? Then Marty Roberts, who is my works with Joe and myself and you with the Fired Up Network. Look at what he says.
I mean, honestly, probably. I mean, they lost to Chicago the other night, and I mean, that team just looks in disarray right now. And Rangers Twitter is kind of trolling them a little bit by saying David Quinn to the Islanders. And I mean, he didn't do great in New York, and I with the Rangers, I'm sure I'm not a huge fan of him, but I mean, maybe he goes to the Islanders.
Hey, listen, let's not forget about the fact that our good friend, well, let's not call him good friend. I played against him in junior, so I can't call him. We're not best buddies. I can't pick up the phone and say, hey, Barry, what's going on? Are you getting fired? I doubt if Barry Trotz is going to get fired. I just can't see them making that move.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a general manager move.
I think with Barry Trotz, I mean, there's a little precedent there. I mean, this is what he's done with that team over the last decade or so. I mean, they've been a really consistent team, and I just think that they have the pieces. I think they just got to find their way a little bit.
All right, just before we go into understanding what's going on in Philadelphia and the change there, Neil Pionk has been suspended for 2 games, obviously for his knee-on-knee with Sandin. We don't know what the extent is. I thought it was a penalty. I think he deserved to get a penalty, but I don't really think what Spezza did. You got to give it to a 38-year-old guy going out there and doing the Superman move and taking a dive at him. I'll give him full marks there, but I just don't think he's the right guy to be doing it. But he certainly showed his team that he will do whatever to protect his team. Your thoughts on Jason and where you think you're going to see his suspension?
Yeah, so he's having an in-person hearing. I can't remember what the exact date is for that, but it'll be over the next few days. But I mean, an in-person hearing means it's a 5-game minimum. So this is a guy who's been one of their best players this year, really consistent. I think he's around like 7 or 8 goals now.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a big loss, especially a guy that at towards the tail end of his career. Can he kind of miss a couple of games and then come back and produce the same level he was? I mean, that's a big part of Toronto's success this year, and it is kind of be tough to see.
Hey, Jordan, it could be a blessing in disguise at 38. He is your best player. Give him 5 days rest or 5 games rest. But It's a big week, don't forget. Tomorrow night, they're back at it. The Leafs are going to, if I'm not mistaken, we're doing tomorrow night, we're doing the pregame with Marty Roberts, of course. And then Thursday night, I think they're up against Tampa Bay, if I'm not mistaken. And then December 11th, where we're going to have a Christmas party. Come on down and see us. We're going to have our 3-camera shoot. We hope everything works out for that, but we're going to test it. You got to come down and see this. We're starting at 6. There's going to be food. There's going to be drinks. There's going to be presents. There's going to be live auction, silent auction. We're going to be doing it all right there at the bottom line. So please come and join us and get some pre-Christmas fun. You can maybe take a prize home or even buy something, support the causes. And of course, you can support your Chicago Blackhawks if you are a Chicago Blackhawks fan.
I mean, they could use anything they could get right now. I mean, that team was lost.
There are talk really quickly, because I do want to get into the Philadelphia Flyers situation. I had a chance to talk with Keith Primo a few minutes ago, maybe about a half an hour ago, I'm sorry. And we talked a little bit about it. And so we'll discuss that in a sec. But I think that when you look at Fleury, there's rumors, they're only rumors, that they may move him or at least open up for him to be moved.
I mean, why not, right? I mean, you can still probably get a decent haul for, a guy who's coming out of a Vezina winning year. So, I mean, it only makes sense. And, they can kind of kickstart this rebuild a little bit. Or maybe they don't even need to go to a full rebuild. They get a couple, young NHL ready guys, and, it just kind of sparks their team a little bit.
Hey, and I really liked watching him in the 3-on-3 the other night. Taves looks really dynamic right now. It looks like the rest of us help him. Kane, DeBrincat, they are a good hockey team. So I'm just a little aghast. Obviously the Jones thing, Seth Jones on the back end hasn't really helped him much, but we'll see that for another day. Hey, listen, let's talk about the Philadelphia Flyers. It's almost trendy right now. Let's just fire the general manager, coaches, and let's clean house. So obviously the Philadelphia Flyers have gotten off to a pretty bad start. I think people warn up patience. We heard about the Hart last year. Carter Hart was not playing as well. So tonight they're going Martin Jones. They're going up against the Colorado Avalanche, who seem to be a little bit cooled off. You and I will make our predictions. What is going on? He will be the 6th Flyers head coach since 2013-14. That's not consistency, other than bad consistency.
Yeah, and when it comes to Vigneault, I look back at his time with the Rangers, and a lot of the same issues that he had in Philadelphia kind of came up. You spoke about last year when he kind of called out Carter Hart for not being able to stop the puck, and you should go back to the goalie school and learn it. But he had a very similar kind of rapport with Henrik Lundqvist, and Lundqvist is a guy who carried this team on his back for the better part of 15 years. So again, there's a lot of things that haven't gone well, and you look at kind of how he's managed younger players coming in the league. Pavel Buchnevich was a young guy on the Rangers who, was playing well his first few years in the league, but Vigneault decided to bring in Mike McLeod, a 30-something-year-old who played like 8 minutes a night and took away his roster spot. So again, these are issues that kind of come up everywhere Vigneault goes, and the kind of system that he brings is a really fast-paced, a lot of offense. Defensively, they're not usually the best. And again, there's the same thing happened here. And, he called out Carter Hart again last year. and he's not giving some younger guys a bigger opportunity. So I just think these kind of limitations are going to go and follow Vigneault wherever he goes.
Hey, Michael Koss, thank you for being on with us. I know I owe you a phone call. I've been so busy running around, but it's nice to have you on with us and hearing your comments. We will get you on our concussion show very soon. Hey, listen, let's talk a little bit about, obviously, the Philadelphia Flyers. They've had goaltending issues for quite a while. When we talked to Keith Primo about it, he's always said, and I had a chat with him today, he likes Carter Hart. He thinks, given more time, this kid will fit in. The change of coaching always seems to get everybody picked up. I think tonight it's a little bit too early to expect any kind of change in their play. We'll talk about that as we get closer to the predictions. Where do you see the problem being? Like, Giroux is there. He's a heck of a hockey player. They added Atkinson, another sweet hockey player. They've got offense. They're okay defensively. What's going wrong? Could this be a coaching issue only?
I hate to dog at a guy, but I think it is, because you look at the Flyers build up again. They have really good forwards, like with the Sean Couturier's and the Claude Giroux, as you mentioned. But you look at this back end, they do need a little more help. And Vigneault's system, like I said earlier, very run and gun, shoot the puck up the ice, have a high guy. And, that's just not going to work for a team that's kind of struggling on the back end to begin with. They brought in Ryan Ellis, Rasmus the line, and these are some pretty big guys. And I think they need a little more time to kind of mesh together, find their identity a little bit. But I think getting a coach with a better system. They hired Mike Yeo as an interim coach right now. And, maybe he brings that kind of different element and a defensive first style game, as opposed to Vigneault kind of run and gun offense.
Well, and that run and gun offense has not been working. So it was a needed change. I think I hate that term. He lost, but that good Flyers team, they started off good, and then all of a sudden, I guess too many voices in their heads have created it. Now, listen, let's talk about tonight then. Specifically, anytime you make a coaching change, everybody kind of picks it up. I think it's really early. They're picking up tonight. I think that's going to be tough. I'm going to predict right off that. I'm going with the Colorado Avalanche. And the reason is McKinnon's back. I think they're now ready. It's given them a couple of games to get settled. This is an important game for the Colorado Avalanche because, there's a lot in that mixture right now in their division. They're going with a new goaltender, Anunen. He's only had one overtime loss. So this is fresh. And sometimes the guys will rally around that. And I think, the way Kadri's playing, he's already got 30 points. He's got 21 goals. Nazem Kadri, 21 goals. That's just crazy. And I know where you're going. I'm not even going to tell people. You're going to tell them in a second. But the Philadelphia Flyers, Giroux's got only 12, and he's leading their team. So I really like where they're going. Sorry, I want to take that back. I did make a mistake. He's got 10 goals, 21 assists. Still, 10 goals for Kadri. I think that's amazing.
That's still very impressive.
It is for a guy that, obviously went a different direction. All right, I'm going to get you to make your prediction now, and then we'll talk about some of the stats, or team stats.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 3-2 Philly. I just think, whenever a team fires their head coach, they get that kind of us against the world mentality. And, I still really like this Flyers team. I was really high on them coming into the year. And again, it just hasn't worked out. So again, I do like Carter Hart. Martin Jones will probably be in that tonight. Yes, but he's having just as good of a year as Carter Hart is. I mean, the goals against is almost identical, 2.94, 2.95 for Jones and Hart respectively. And then you look at the save percentage, Martin Jones is a little bit better. But again, both goalies are playing a very similar game, and they're playing at similar levels. So I think it depends. Doesn't matter who you go with tonight. I mean, the goaltending is still going to be there.
Hey, you're absolutely true. When you're at a 2.94, that's a little bit on the high side, but 9.917 save percentage is good. It's better than average. So I think you're right, Jones. But I just got a feeling that McKinnon's got to start putting on a show. And again, with Anunen certainly going to have the opportunity to show his wares. Maybe he's the new Joseph Wall, even though he got pumped the other night by my Winnipeg Jets. Hey, Jordan, can the Flyers win with Hart in net?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, you look at the numbers I just read out with the 9/11 save percentage. The fact that he has a goals against that's almost a 3, it kind of just shows that he's still making saves on a regular basis, and some of the goals that he's letting in. I mean, they might not have the best chance on, but I mean, the fact that he's still making regular saves, he's stopping majority of the pucks. I mean, that's still a very promising sign. And
All right.
I think Carter Hart he's almost earned himself a spot, maybe as a number 3 for Team Canada in a few months.
Well, here's your dad coming in and saying, how many lives does Carter Hart get? We all want to love him, but it's getting harder.
He's playing well. He's playing well.
I know. There's the difference. Got a little bit of animosity here between Jordan and John. And I'm going to go with your dad. You know what? I want to love this kid. I want him to be successful. I want him to make Team Canada, but it's getting harder and harder and harder. And of course, it's looking better for him for the simple fact it may be just a series of numbers. Because Carey Price, it doesn't look like he's going to come in till after Christmas. I don't think that's going to give him enough time maybe to be ready to go to the Olympics. And of course, we got a whole bunch of crap going on before that. Listen, just before we let you go, obviously goals for the Colorado Avalanche. They're flying. And that's without McKinnon for a couple of weeks. 4 goals per game.
Jeez.
To the Philadelphia Flyers, 2.32. 4 goals per game. That is monstrous. Goals against, though, 3.38 versus Philadelphia, 3.18. Close, but still. But the averages here on the power play, don't put them on the power play. If you put the Avalanche on the power play, almost 22% they're scoring, and the Philadelphia Flyers are down at a low 13.4. Penalty killing, Flyers are doing a great job, 82.6, whereas the Colorado Avalanche are 76.20. We know that stats are not always what they seem because they're playing all these different teams. But when you're looking at the Colorado Avalanche, definitely have the scoring touch. And of course, we're going to need to see Martin Jones have one of his better games tonight. And I think McKinnon is going to light him up. I think you said 3-2. I didn't make my prediction. Yeah. I'm going to go with 5-2 tonight for the Colorado Avalanche. I just think they're due. Mark Simon, thank you for joining us. Carter Hart might be ruined after the Lightning game. That, or he bounces back to become elite right away. Doubt there is a middle ground. Obviously, they got big time hammered. And I think it may be a wake-up call, too. They're embarrassed. Yeah. And when you put somebody back in a corner, we'll see tonight. I think it's too early, Jordan. I don't disagree with you. Management change, coaching changes certainly make a difference, but not tonight. You're not fired up enough yet. Philadelphia Flyers are not fired up enough. Ask Marty Roberts, because he's coming in here. Has Yari done enough to be a conversation for Team Canada? I say yes.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit on the fence with Jari. I mean, I do think he will come back down to earth at some point, whether that's before the Olympics or after. I mean, it's going to happen, but at the same time, I mean, he's definitely in that conversation. I mean, he has to be, because you look around the league now. I mean, who would you take to Canada, Gouche? Because like looking around now, after Carey Price and after Marc-Andre Fleury kind of having a really bad year, there aren't a lot of guys left.
Hey, listen, I really apologize. We were going to have Wayne Fish on. He's just texted me. He's in the backstage, but I think there's some issues. So I'm going to have to apologize to Wayne Fish. He was going to come and join us on this. He is a tremendous reporter down in Philadelphia. We will get him on for tomorrow's pregame show, get him talk a little bit about what's going on tonight's game, of course, to see whether or not Jordan is right or Gouche is right. And I know Wayne's going to side with me because he knows that the Flyers are not ready to come out of their shell. You mentioned, who do you think is going to be the goaltender for them? I don't have a distinct player goalie in advantage right now. I'm really, really hoping, and I think if Carey Price can get through it and through this next couple of weeks, and maybe this time off is really going to help him, energize him, get back in a new year. He can certainly play himself into it. I wouldn't discount the opportunity for Fleury. We just heard that Robin Lehner has definitely pulled himself out of Team USA solely for the fact he wants to take care of his mental health issues. So I think when you're looking at it, there's a lot of confusion, not only in Canada now, you're going to see some in the Team USA. I'll tell you what, to the whoever's in net, defensively and offensively, they are going to be very, very strong. And
He's Swedish.
Who's Swedish? That's
Robin
what I said. With the asterisk, I knew that. I was just testing you. With the asterisk, okay, so let me go to that. I honestly thought it was the States, the way he talks. I want to ask you this then. What about the States? If you're going to be a smarty pants, who's going in for the States?
I mean, John Gibson's having a great year down in Anaheim, and that team's kind of taken off a little bit. They're having some pretty good success. You got to look at Thatcher Demko. I mean, granted, Vancouver's struggling, and I don't think a lot of that's on him. I still think, you know, he was in that Vezina conversation for majority of last year, and you know, I think if Vancouver can kind of find their way a little bit, I mean, maybe he plays himself back into a spot. But at the end of the day, I mean, Connor Hellebuck's still going to be one of the top guys there. I mean, my dad just put in Jack Campbell there in the comments as well. He's definitely playing himself into the conversation as well. So I think the U.S. will have a little bit of a tighter race for that goaltending spot, but Canada is looking a little rough.
Well, now that Lerner's been traded to Sweden, that eliminates that issue. But Jack Campbell, you know what? At the beginning of the year, I would say your dad making that statement is nuts.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, he looks the part. And I don't think you're going to, especially with the way the pandemic's going, I think you're going to go to the hot hand. You're going to see a guy like Campbell, if he can continue on. Listen, let's see where the Leafs go after this. Of course, you know, they got beaten by Minnesota. It was an overtime loss. They got soundly beaten by my Winnipeg Jets. I shouldn't cry too loud because it may come back to haunt me. But they certainly, there were great opportunities, especially in the first period too, for the Toronto Maple Leafs to be down maybe 4 or 5 goals. I know that our buddy Blake Wheeler on his 1,000th night missed a clear-cut breakaway. That would have energized the crowd, even though it was an awesome night for him. I just think tonight, the Toronto Maple Leafs are in town. They're getting rested. They're getting ready. And tomorrow night, when they take to the ice, we will see the aftermaths of that game, because that was a tough game, right? Spezza stepping up and doing what he did. As you mentioned, he's going to be suspended. Simons stood up, you know, and said, listen, you're not going to do that in our town. I still find Matthews a little bit of a softy, you know, without Marner too, like Marner's grit in the lineup. I just think maybe this is going to be a true test for the Leafs to see if all the supporting staff, Bunting looks good. Maybe he can step up a little bit more already. He's been fantastic. But I think you may be able to see a team galvanizing behind that us against them theory that you mentioned earlier, because of the fact that I do believe the Winnipeg Jets did take a few liberties against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm not going to cry the blues. I know the Leafs are trying that. I just can't stand watching both coaches, you know, chirping and using the F-bombs at each other. I know it's part of the game. I just found that a little bit cheap on both of them. And hopefully that's not the case going forward. All right, listen, we made our predictions. I just believe tonight McKinnon is going to have a hat trick.
Okay.
Who is going to score for the Philadelphia Flyers?
I mean, you gotta go to the usual suspects. I mean, the Claude Giroux. I mean, Sean Couturier is having a decent year as well. I mean, and maybe, you know, like a Ryan Ellis can kind of turn his season around with this new system that Mike Yeo. It probably take a few weeks for that to be implemented, but you know, a Ryan Ellis for sure. I'm gonna go with him.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Jordan, thank you for producing the show again today. We're getting ready. The countdown is on. On the 11th, we will be doing our first official, the set won't be complete. It'll be almost ready, but I'll tell you what, we're going to try and do our first 3-camera shoot. We're excited. I know you're excited. Yep. So thank you for all that you've done. And I see your pops jumping in and saying, yep, Ellis. I don't mind his game at all. All right. So we will talk to you tomorrow at the pregame show. Really enjoyed having an opportunity to chat with you, buddy.
See ya.
Okay. All right. What a great show. Now, I had a chance to sit down with this gentleman this afternoon from Vancouver. And let me tell you, incredible. Incredible what we got from him. And here he is, Matt Sekeres from Sekeres and Price from Vancouver. We are so excited to have this guy with us. I'll tell you what, there have been changes in the NHL, as you know, and they have been enormous. Obviously, we hear what's going on with Vancouver. We'll get a chance to talk to Matt in a few seconds about that. And of course, what's going on with Philadelphia. This is a day of sport where we didn't think we'd have so much action, but we do today. Now listen, here he is, the man all the way from Vancouver, who's going to fill us in with the Vancouver Canucks, Matt Sekeres.
Hi, Kerry. Pleased to join you here.
Pleased to join you. Now, I apologize. I want to make sure I said your name right.
Yeah, no, you got it. You got
Fantastic.
it. Sekeres and Price, we've been a 10-year entity here in Vancouver with myself and Blake Price, formerly on terrestrial radio, now in the digital space at sekeresandprice.com. And obviously a big news day today for the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, of course, our viewers are going to see that down below where you can check it out. I was in Vancouver. I was mentioning it to you about 2 or 3 weeks ago for the World Hockey Association's press conference. Greg Bowden said, hey, this is one of the best podcasts. You got to listen to it. Well, there it is right now. And I got a chance to listen to it. It was fantastic. And I noticed that we do have a little spelling mistake there. So Jordan will fix that up. It was really good. You two have a personality. You just love each other. And you also have a little bit of controversy. Talk to us about it, how cool it is to be doing this in this day and age.
Oh, well, thank you to you. Thank you for all the kind words. I appreciate the recommendation there. Yeah, love each other. That's probably the first time that's been used, Kerry. We have a good time. Blake and I have been, like I mentioned, we've been together 10 years. So you have some of those chemistry things that take reps, that take time. So yeah, we've enjoyed talking sports in this city and in this province to the audience. And let's face it, a fan base that has deserved a whole lot better than what they've got here over the last 6 or 7 years, Kerry. So this has been quite a day, quite an upheaval. It is the first time the Vancouver Canucks have moved on a general manager and a head coach in the same day since the mid-1980s, and that was the same guy, Harry Neal, who some might forget was actually a coach in APM before he went on to an illustrious career in broadcasting. So that gives you a sense of how long it has been here since we've seen this kind of house cleaning with the Canucks.
Matt, when I said love, I meant that exactly. Love it when you're on the air with somebody is that chemistry. You guys just flow so well together. So I want to get right into it. What went wrong with this team? You know, Vancouver Canucks, they went obviously through last year with what went on with the pandemic. You saw them kind of unite and come together. And a lot of people thought, wow, this was going to be a year of growth. And obviously we see today both the general manager and the coach being let go. It's certainly not a year of the growth.
No, and Kerry, like, here's the thing. Like, I think there were a lot of people who thought this team could really struggle, but I think those who thought they would struggle identified the blue line and the back end as being the biggest culprit through 24, 25 games here, believe it or not, has been some of the big scoring stars, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, to a lesser extent, Bo Horvat, that have been the problem in terms of this team just not scoring enough goals. They have been atrocious on special teams, both the special teams, the power play, which we never expected because we thought they had the ammunition and the gunners to make for a good power play. Penalty kill, we had our doubts, and sure enough, that has proven true as, you know, one of the worst outfits, well, historically bad penalty kill here going on for the Vancouver Canucks. And let's just face it, you know, that blue line on paper is still a sore spot and still a place where I think teams can take advantage of Vancouver. So it's been a calamitous season here with so much that has gone wrong. And finally, Canucks ownership is heeding the word of their customers and has moved on the general manager and the head coach here, hiring Bruce Boudreau and offering up some hope of a brighter day.
All right, is it have anything to do with their bad signings? You believe unlucky drafting? Obviously, Garland coming. Love this kid, the grit. I thought he'd add that front, which is he's been, I would say, one of the surprising positive spots. Demko has been very good when you look at his overall performance.
Yeah.
So, is there anything with signings, or is there
Yeah.
something disrupting?
All of the above, Kerry. It's really been a poorly constructed team. Jim Benning, in his 7+ years here, was never able to construct a representative blue line of a contender. So we've seen that here again this year. Really hurt by 2 misses in the top 10 of the draft. They took Jake Virtanen 6th overall back in 2014. A couple years later, they were back taking Ole Ulevi 5th overall. Neither of those guys turned out to be NHL players, or at least longstanding NHL players. So that was difficult. This was an administration that was known to give too much money and too much term to mediocre or bottom end of the roster and players. So all of that sort of snowballed and caught up to them here in the beginning of this season. Just a dreadful start, like have twice as many losses as they have wins. We've been joking they're a 6 or 7 game winning streak away from being a 6 or 7 game winning streak away. So the postseason is a sliver of hope and probably already lost, even as we turn the calendar over to December here.
Hey, you're listening to Gouche Live here. I'm with Matt Sekeres from SekeresandPrice.com. Make sure you check it out. Very, very entertaining. Listen, what was the final nail in the coffin here? We knew there were rumblings and things were going to happen. Obviously, the fans chanting fire Benning doesn't help his cause. And of course, was it some of the big moves didn't work? Obviously, the jersey, we've seen it here in Toronto, kind of turned their season around when we saw them throw it. And then we saw what happened in Montreal with the jersey. And then now a jersey in Vancouver. It's starting to be a trend.
Yeah, well, I think, Kerry, that Saturday obviously was pivotal in one regard. They were chanting fire Benning in the stands. They were chanting sell the team in the concourses as they were leaving. So a message delivered right to the Aquilini ownership group. There's a jersey that hit the ice, of course, to be retrieved by a Penguins defenseman, and they have tons of home games remaining, my friend. 31 home games left, a bunch of them this month. I think we had hit the point of consumer crisis, a confidence issue with consumers. So I think ownership looked at it and said, this is as much an economic issue here over the short term as it is a hockey operations issue. They need to be able to sell a story that is different than Jim Benning and Travis Green and all in to make the playoffs. And they have that at least today with Bruce Boudreau.
Just before I ask you about the signing of Bruce Boudreau, I want to ask you this. Does this team have the necessary parts to be a contender? Did you feel if they're 1 or 2 or 3 moves away? And of course, with that then comes about can Pettersson turn his season around? Because obviously they're going to go as he goes.
Mm-hmm. So I thought they had enough pieces to contend on the fringes of the playoff race in the Western Conference. Now, we thought, they would score a lot of goals, that they have a pretty good-looking top 9, and that they would have the backstopping of Thatcher Demko in goal, and really Garo Halak, who's, one of the preeminent backups in the National Hockey League, to at least win some shootout games with their offense, win some games where the goaltender stands on his head. Kerry, I don't think we anticipated that the Pacific Division would be as good as it is, and you can thank the Calgary Flames and the Anaheim Ducks here for surging this year. Kings are in town tonight. They had a nice little run there for a bit as well, although a little closer to back to earth these days. But I don't necessarily think we thought the Pacific Division would be as strong as it is, and so I think that is, by extension, made them look bad as well. So, in terms of being a contender, I don't think anybody looked at this Vancouver Canucks team and said, yeah, that's a team that could vie for Stanley Cup this year, that has a deep run in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But, from ownership to management to the coaching staff and the players, they all thought that they were a playoff team. That has proven to be sorely mistaken here. And you're quite right. The production of Elias Pettersson and, to a lesser extent, as I mentioned, Brock Besser and Bo Horvat is key here. Quinn Hughes is doing his part. He's having a very nice season offensively, as well as tightening up the defensive side of the puck. JT Miller has been terrific for them in all situations. But it has been those 3 guys, Pettersson, Besser, and Horvat that they need more out of, and that falls to Bruce Boudreau, who has a pretty fair history, it must be said, of dealing with offensively inclined players. So big hope that he can get Pettersson and the lot working here.
Well, Bo Horvat is quoted as saying, our team needed a spark, and certainly Bruce Boudreau will help create that spark. You've got to be excited now that there is hope. It's a change. Anytime you have change, Boudreau, of course, has a very, very solid record, 984 games, coached in the National Hockey League, 567 wins, 302 losses. He's been with Washington, Anaheim, and Minnesota. He won the Jack Adams back in 06 and 07, and I'll tell you what, he will need to win another Jack Adams to pull this Vancouver Canucks out of the place that they are. Are you excited? Are the fan base excited? I know it's early. It's going to be starting tonight, the era of Bruce Boudreau, but at least there's that optimism that's there.
Yeah, in these early hours, Kerry, I think it's fair to say the fan base is excited. Some are even looking past the sort of awkward situation here where they've hired the replacement coach, but not the replacement general manager. That's not necessarily best practice, best procedure. But I think a lot of Canucks fans are just happy to have a new voice and a new communicator. It must be said, the other thing that was lacking here for the last several years is just they weren't effective in communication with their fan base, with their customers. That wasn't Jim Benning's strength. Travis Green has gotten more and more frustrated, I think, with the exercise as the Canucks kept tossing him forward to be the face and spokesperson for the franchise on some files that really he had no business speaking on. It should have been dealt with above his pay grade, and yet it wasn't being, at least not in an effective way. Hey, we all know Bruce, right? Like, he is a charismatic guy. He is certainly going to take some of the heat off his players and off his superiors in the near term with just being Bruce Boudreau. So, the results will show themselves. And, at the end of the day, I think Canuck Nation wants results more than anything else, no matter how it's communicated. But I think having a coach like Boudreau here in the near term is sort of exactly what they needed. You could argue they needed this 3 weeks to a month ago, though, Kerry, if they were interested in saving the season. It is going to be a tough ladder to climb the rest of the way, but at least they'll do it with somebody who's got a little bit of a sparkle in his eye.
Well, it's trending. Obviously, it went on in Montreal as the Vancouver Canucks made their changes. Philadelphia has also cleaned house. Listen, as I let you go, if you want to know anything about the Vancouver Canucks and the sports scene in Vancouver, make sure you check out sekeresandprice.com. Matt, I can't thank you enough. My last prediction, or my last question for you, is the prediction on a general manager. You know everything. Is there an inside tip? Is there somebody you think we could be looking that's going to fill that position?
Well, there was part of me that wondered whether there is a general manager or a president of hockey operations in place who was steering and spearheading the hiring of Bruce Boudreau as a replacement coach. As we sit here right now, Kerry, I don't have that information. It sounds, and they put it in a press release, that there is a search ongoing for new senior leadership. So, no, right now I don't have a whole lot of guesses other than the usual candidates, but I think it's going to be a very telltale and interesting hire from the Vancouver Canucks, because what they have to do now is hire a head of hockey operations that has some separation with ownership. Right. One of the criticisms here has been that ownership has been too involved in the hockey decisions. So they need to get back to where they were a number of years ago, where you have that buffer, where you have hockey people making the hockey decisions. So I think a lot of Canucks fans are waiting with bated breath until they find out who's coming in here on the hockey ops side.
Well, just as I let you go, I'm just going to throw this one out. There's rumors of Patrick Roy in Montreal. What about Roberto Luongo in Vancouver? That would be really exciting and entertaining for the fans.
He's a very popular guy here. I think he'd be a very popular choice.
All right. Matt, thank you so much for joining us on short notice. Thank you for filling us in with exactly what's going on in Vancouver. Look forward to chatting with you in the near future just to find out how Bruce has done. And, of course, we all hope that Vancouver Canucks can get on the right track again and get back into the swing of things, and hopefully, who knows, maybe vie for a playoff spot. Matt, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kerry. Appreciate it.
I know. How exciting was that? Matt Sekeres from sekeresandprice.com. I got to tell you, their relationship over 10 years, you can feel it when you hear them. And so we were excited to have them. All right. You've been watching Gouche Live right here, brought to you by the good people at the Hockey News, Sports Illustrated, and of course, Fired Up Network.
You've been listening to Gouche Live with your host, Kerry Goulet, better known as The Gouche, brought to you by the Hockey News and Sports Illustrated.